Welcome back to Bar Run Forge, and welcome back to another Monday morning tool video. And today we're going to make the square punch out of some coil spring. A coil spring, as we know already, is, from best we know, is 5160. That's a hardenable steel. It's a fairly tough steel, and that's what we're going to make the majority of our tools out of. And this is going to be a square punch. Now what you're asking is probably, what would you use a square punch for? The same thing you use a round punch for, just a different shape. It's to make a square hole. That's as simple as it gets. To make a square hole, we have to make a square punch. We're going to make it out of this piece of coil spring. And it's about 9 inches long. Basically, we're just straightening it out using the Prichard hole, using the Hardy hole, using the face of the anvil, hammer. Whatever it takes to straighten the piece out, that's what we're going to use. A little clean. Plan is, now that we've got it cut to length, is on one end will be the struck end. We will create an octagon there, which means we'll take it to square, and then we'll take those corners off, and that'll give us 8 sides. Then we'll round the top of it with the grinder. Down at this end, we'll take that taper down just to square. And that'll pretty much be the end of it after we put in our handle index. All right, so other than the grinding, the struck end is done. We'll round that over, clean that up. Next thing we'll do is we'll try to find one of these flats, and we'll do a flat on either side so that we can grip and index it. Struck end, and we got the handle indexed in there. Now we'll work on the square punch end. tried to keep everything in line. And we may got a little bit of a twist in it, but we can fix that. But the idea is to keep the square in line. We've already got this squared out. We'll taper that down and go from there. That's as far as we're going to take it as far as the taper goes. So we're basically down to doing a normalizing cycle or two, and we'll do some grinding, clean up, then we'll do the heat treat. After 2 cycles of normalization, we're now going to be able to work on both ends, both the struck end and the working end. What we're going to do is take a flap disc on a 4.5 inch angle grinder, and we're going to flatten it, and then we'll put a little bit of a dome on it so that we can concentrate the blows right down the center of the tool. We'll repeat that process on the end of the working end. Place it in the vise, flatten the top. This is the struck end, or the working end. And after completion of grinding, I can see a little bit of out of square in some places that we should be able to get with the grinder, but I do want to try kind of evening that up as well. Let's get to work on that. With the initial grind done to both ends, the struck end and the working end, now we'll work towards the heat treatment. Again, we'll only heat treat about 3 inches of the tool down at the working end, and then we'll harden and temper it from there. Square punch is done. We have put the finish on it. We've got the final grind and the polish as much as we're going to do to it. This is one of those things, again, this is our tool. This is our tool in the shop. I've got another square punch. This one is specifically for just punching the hole. I've got one that kind of drifts things out. So what we're going to do, we're going to give you a demonstration as to what a square punch does. It kind of sounds a little silly, but a square punch makes a square hole. So let's do that. All right, so we go back to our piece that we've been using for our punching and our chiseling, and we just find a spot on here that we like, set the hole, and go right back into that same spot. Do it again until we bottom out, removing the chisel or removing the punch every time we strike. Okay, now we can turn that over. We find that point, we go back to it, and we take it over to the Pritchell hole, punch the slug out. One more time. And a little rag on it right there. I think we can get that out of there, but that's essentially how it works. There we go. Square punch. Square hole. The square punch. Great tool to have in the shop. We utilize it on a regular basis to make square holes. They're great for tenons, but we want to make a connection to what God has to say for us today. The square punch. Well, there's one thing about the square punch that we really like. It's square. It's uniform. It's got the four sides. It's designed to cut a square and punch out a square hole for a specific reason. Now, when we look at what God does for us on a regular basis and what God has commanded us to do, things like in worship and in our service and everything that we do, we can make a reference all the way back to when he was setting up the tabernacle and the temple. And he was telling the Hebrews exactly how to build it, because God is a God of order. And he was very clear about this. And the number 4 is very important throughout the scripture. We're not going to get too heavy into that, but I'm going to read from Ezekiel 40:47. And it says this: Then he measured the court. It was square, 100 cubits long, 100 cubits wide. And the altar was in front of the temple. So in all of this that we look at, everything that was designed by God, everything that he planned out for the temple was all based on that which was in order. It was square. It was exactly the way he designed it. and the purpose was for worship. The altar was in front of it all. So our importance, our desire should be to keep everything in line, in order with what God has planned out for us, and that our purpose should be to worship and worship Him alone. Thank you guys for coming in and checking out this video. Just remember to like, share, subscribe, hit that reminder bell if you like these videos. We'd love to have you back. God bless you guys. We'll see you on the next one. Take care.